Hey, what's good? This is Quick Tip 159, and today's Quick Tip is just a recommendation. It's about using external effects in Machine. A lot of times when it comes to effects, you can see I have this piano and I got a guitar rig, an Effectrix, and a rotary. These are three different effects, and a lot of times when I do an effect, I just come over here to the slot inside of, the slot right here inside of Fruity Loops, and I load up an effect right here inside the mixer. But there's also another way you can do it, which is bringing your effects inside a machine. And there's a good reason why you should do it this way. The first reason is that anytime you load up an instrument or an effect inside a machine, it links up almost all of the key parameters right here on your knobs. So when I push the plugin button, I can see the instrument on my MK3 screen, and I have all these different options that I can affect right there at my fingertips that are going to change the sound drastically. And you don't get that if you load it up inside of your DAW directly. So that's one of the key reasons. And if you look at this guitar rig right here, anytime you load up an effect or an FX, it's going to have all these different knobs and settings from the effect. So if I go here to guitar rig and I look at it, a lot of these key features or the key features of this preset are already linked automatically to the knobs, and that's by default, so you don't have to do any extra work to get all that. And it can really affect the sound, being able to affect or change all of those and even automate them right there at the same time, at the push of a button right there with your finger. Also, if you click right here on the magnifying glass, it lets you go through all of your presets. So I can click right here and it loads up all my presets right here. If you have the MK3, you can see it on the screen, and it allows you to browse through all your presets a lot faster than if you did that with your mouse one by one. You can see I have Effectrix right here, and when I load up Effectrix, it has almost 8 pages of different settings. And remember, these are all default, so every different effect or instrument you load up, it'll have a lot of different preset and already automatically linked parameters. And these can be stuff like the sample rate, bit crust, distortion. All these knobs are basically linked up to the machine. And if I load up this rotary, it's the same thing right here. You can see I have an effect, and then I have almost 4 pages of settings. And having these settings at your fingertip, it changes the way you use the sound. Like, for example, I have this rotary. A lot of times when I do it, I'll just use my mouse and I'll move knobs like this, and I'll move stuff like this. But when you have something like this, I can move multiple knobs at one time, so I'm actually moving it a lot different, and I'm getting a different result than I would have, get a lot different result than I would have, say, if I didn't do it like that, or if I didn't use 2 fingers at one time. So it changes the experience, and it changes the way that you use the effect just by having all those settings at your fingertips. So that's one of the key reasons why you should bring a lot more external effects to Machine. And then another important reason is the fact that Machine has snapshots or lock states. So I can make a lock state, or I can go through all these different effects, and I can change all these different settings inside the effect. Like I could change a bunch right there, or I can go to the rotary right here, and I could change up a bunch of stuff, or I can move the little thing on the controller or knob on my hardware. And I can move and change all these different settings. And after doing so, I can save it as a lock state, and that's not a feature that Fruity Loops has. So anytime you change the settings on an effect in Fruity Loops, it's going to be permanent. It's going to stay that way unless you undo it. With Machine, I can actually save a lock state. So I can have one lock state with it original. Then I can go through and change all these settings on each different effect, and I can go ahead and save that as a new lock state. And remember, with Machine lock states, you can morph between the lock states every bar, or you can make the transition however you want, or at the push of a button I can switch between lock states. And remember, we can even arrange lock states on Fruity Loops. So it's real important because you get to switch between A and B and C and D and unlimited lock states, different settings for your effects that'll drastically change your sound. And having the knobs at your fingertip, it'll change how you interact with the effect, so it changes your experience, it changes how you use it. So it's why it's a good recommendation to bring external effects in the Machine rather than just clicking right here on Fruity Loops and loading them in one by one like you usually do. This is just a patch that I made right here. I ended up using the art mode and scale mode on Machine, which was another good reason why to bring the instrument in here. And then I was able to put those effects on it and have different snapshots. I'm just going to show you these two different snapshots, and they sound slightly different because they have a lot of different settings on all the effects. And that's why it's a good idea to bring them inside a machine like this. So I have one lock state right here. This is my second lock state. And then I can push one, and this is another lock state. And so the possibilities are endless. I could have tons of different lock states. I could add a ton of different chain of effects that we end endless chain of effects, and had stuff, different lock states could have effects bypassed. So you could really get real creative with the different lock states. And remember, you can arrange those right here on the playlist inside of Fruity Loops if you set it up. So this is a quick tip. It's kind of long-winded, but it's a recommendation to use a lot more external effects in Machine. One, because it gives you all the options mapped out by default for any plugin, so it's going to change the way you use the plugin and your experience with it. And two, because we have the lock state feature, so we can actually switch between different states or different settings with our effects. And we can get real creative like that, having different lock states and pop up at different parts of our beat. So this is just a recommendation on using a lot more external effects inside a machine, and why it's a good recommendation to do so. All right, till next time, check out my other quick tips and also my custom MK3 template. 1.